In this So Easy video, I'm going to show you how to cut strip sets. Strip sets are simple. They are just strips of fabric at a predetermined width, sewn together into strips, and then after that, you cut them up into sections. A really good example is the 9 patch, where you sew 3 strips together and cut them up, and you'll do, say, a dark, light and a dark, and then the other one will alternate with a light, dark, and light, and then when you put them together, you get your 9 patch. Well, I'm going to show you how to do strip sets because they're extremely helpful in your quilting. You use them all the time. So, what are setting triangles? Well, I'm on the floor to show you what they are. Setting triangles are comprised of 2 different ones. These are the corner setting triangles, and these are the side setting triangles. And what they do is they set your blocks on point. There will be a 6-inch block here, one that you've pieced or appliqued, same here, and so instead of having them straight, this sets them on point or on a diagonal, so that's why these guys are called setting triangles. Now, what you would have is you say your 6-inch piece block here, then the next would probably be this same background fabric most commonly, and then you'd have another piece block and then your solid. Well, you'd work it out so it is the right amount to work out this way. What's really great about the Fons and Porter ruler is that it tells you everything that you need to do, and you're going to cut your corner strips out of a piece, and you're going to cut your side strips out of a piece, or your side triangles out of a piece. The cool thing is that they both start with the same size strips, and the ruler tells you everything. Pretty smart, huh? The first step is, of course, to cut your strips. It's important not only to cut them the correct width, in this case 2.5 inches, but also to have a line on the ruler line up with the fold of the fabric as at the bottom of your screen here. I cut one just to illustrate this problem, and I exaggerated a little bit, but just so you can see. Here's my fold, and if I'm not cutting straight, if I'm cutting off at an angle a little bit, what happens is you end up with a V. See how that isn't straight at all? It's in a V. As you can see, this one, and I did exaggerate it, but that isn't straight at all, so you're going to have problems. So do that trick of lining up your ruler, and then your strips will always be straight. This one belongs here. I've paired 2 strips together, right sides facing, and I'm matching the raw edges, and of course they're perfectly cut so they match perfectly, and now I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance along the right hand edge. Now with this one sewn, I'm going to add my 3rd strip. Here I have my 2, and what I'm going to do, this is a little tip to help them stay straight and not get bunched up. I'm going to twist this, turn this to the other end, and I'm going to sew it to this other end, and then you're sewing one way and then the other, and it helps to keep things working smoothly. So now I'll add this strip, which is another red one, to this side of the gold, and do the same thing, just stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down. So now I have my strip set sewn, and this is for something like a 9 patch, so it's 3. But if you had a strip set that contained 4 or any even multiple, I suggest that you sew them together first in pairs of 2 and then sew them together from there. It's just simpler that way. Now, the next step is to press these. You want to press the seam allowances, and the first thing you want to do is press just along the stitching where you've stitched, because that sets the seam. And it just sets the threads into the seam. You'll just get a better press job once you do that. Then you open it up, and I'm not worrying about which way I'm pressing my seam allowances towards dark and light because these fabrics are fine. Just take the side of your iron and press. You don't want to do anything like this and distort it. Now if you're using a big mat, it's just easier for me to film on the small one. What I would do is I would line up the whole length of the strip against the line on the mat, and then I would open it up, and then that way when you press, you know you're getting an exact straight line, and you'll also be able to tell right down here if it's straight, and that helps, of course, that then once you do all your chopping up, that you're every step of the way you're keeping everything nice and straight. With my strips all sewn together and pressed, I'm ready to cut into my sections, and in this case I've cut my strips 2.5 inches, so this should be 2 inches, and it is, which means that I've sewn and pressed well. And so I also want to cut this way into sections that are 2.5 inches. And so what I first need to do is clean up this bad edge. And so I'm going to line up on my ruler. It's good to use one of these inside lines to line up, because then you're using something inside rather than what might be a wavy edge. Of course, I wouldn't say that yours are wavy, but mine might be. So I straighten that up, and since I'm not on my big table, I'm just going to turn this. Usually I would go to the other side. And I'm going to line this up to my 2.5 inches on this ruler. And again, I'm always making sure that this line is correct, and then that way, as you cut along, you'll know that you're getting them all right. And if this line starts getting a little wavy, just do another strip across here using this line to straighten it up again, and then you can keep cutting, because you do get a little bit of out of whack as you go, even if you're really careful. It's just the nature of things. So just keep cutting as many pieces as you need for your project according to the instructions. And also do note this, you can speed this up by, if you have say 3 strips like this, you can stack them up and be cutting 3 at one time. Makes it go much faster, so you can get to sewing, which I think is the fun part. I'm down on the floor ready to lay out my quilt, but I wanted to add one more thing. Let's just say that instead of your block being a round number like 6, that it's 6 1/4 or 6 1/2, we'll just go up to the next larger size. In other words, that would be the 7. Cut them 7, sew it, and then you'll have extra to trim off the edge, and that way you'll have extra rather than too little, and everyone will be happy. So now you know how to set your blocks on diagonal with these corners and side pieces. Happy quilting! Look for more videos like this one at QNNTV.com. Happy quilting!